Well, black people are Native Americans. We've had, a lot of proof that, you know, some of us started here in this land. Everybody wasn't brought over from Africa.
What are they doing here? They're Indians.
This is one of my many unsuccessful experiments. You see, with Indians, there's absolutely nothing to be done. There's the same difference between a Negro and an Indian as there is between a dog and a coyote. You can put a dog on a leash, beat him, and he'll always be there to lick your feet. Take away a coyote's liberty, and you've cut off his heir. An Indian will never be a slave. No one has ever been able to make them reproduce in captivity. They do not eat, they do not talk, they do not sleep, they do not make love.
There are several things that are significant about it. Of course, one of them is the way that colonialism tries to develop all kinds of elaborate classification terms for different kinds of people, but that's another subject. The most significant thing here is to reveal the much greater amounts of Native American ancestry that are present within the African American population than most people realize, because they might have been misled by the use of terms like mulatto and also people of color.
After the African, LeVar Burton, had been told that his name was to be Toby, and he refused it, and he was beaten to make him say his name was Toby.
That was the dramatization. How much of that actually was recounted to you? I mean, was there a lot of interweaving?
A lot of it, I thought maybe you were going to ask, and maybe you are in another way, is how much of the book is fact and how much is fiction. Well, a whole lot of it's fiction. Well, a whole lot of it's fiction. Well, a whole lot of it's fiction.
Now, this is just a tiny bit of information now.
But they take it as huge.
Right, because it's cracking open the door.
There's a place in Africa you could say that I'm from. A tribe? I am thrilled. It puts a name, a place, a location, a people.
Hank really is concerned that the science isn't really there yet for you to be giving them the name of a tribe.
I think for most companies, I would be concerned too.
But what about your own company?
We have
he
the
didn't
largest...
exclude you. He included you.
But we have the largest set of sequences from Africa. And so with that, we're able to provide some level of probability in terms of frequency.
But he would say that even though you have the largest database, it's still small on the scope of things.
As I said, I share those concerns. We don't oversell. I mean, we just say, look, we provide a service. If you're interested in exploring a tiny bit of your DNA and trace its ancestry, we can do that.
When you say it's a tiny little amount,
it's less than 0.1%. Less than 0.1%. Less than 0.1%.
And that's pretty teeny.
Yeah, but for people who know nothing about any of them, I think it's very important.
You do not know a goddamn thing about Africa. I am from Detroit, Motown. So you can want Tootsie your monkey ass back to Africa if you want to.
Hey y'all, hi, happy Educational Friday. What's up? Shout out to everybody in the building. Y'all get in here. Let's set the mood for why we're here. Y'all get in here. I hope everybody's having a great Friday. It's raining where I am, but it is what it is. I hope you guys are having a great Friday. I hope y'all enjoy y'all weekend. I hope everything has been great for y'all thus far. But we are here to discuss the truth in plain sight. Okay. Now I don't know about you guys, but I recently found out that the movie Dead Presidents is actually mirrored after an actual person, Haywood T. Kirkland, who's a Black American who literally went to Vietnam, wrote a book called Bloods, and explained how Black Americans had their whole time in the military during the Vietnam War, all the things that they had to deal with, even there, coming back. Like, he wrote a whole little spiel about his situation, and that is what this movie Dead Presidents is after. Or at least that's where they got the idea. Okay, now before we get into Haywood, I want to talk a bit about the movie. So what is it, Hughes brothers? Those are the guys who created the movie, who wrote the movie and everything. Two black brothers. And basically, they almost wasn't able to go off with this movie. It actually had an alternate ending, which the alternate ending, I guess it kind of talked about what happened after he was sentenced to jail and how the government was complicit and all that stuff. And obviously, they took that out for obvious reasons, and we'll go over that a little bit more later on. However, Black Americans as a whole were not doing well in the Vietnam War. As a matter of fact, most Americans opposed, and I'm being generous by saying most, but a lot of Americans opposed the Vietnam War. If you know what I know now, you know that it was basically a dummy mission, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother educational Friday. However, the people of the 60s and the 70s was not here for that either. And Haywood T. Kirkland, is that his name? I'm sorry. He had a lot to say about it. Now, his character is played by Lorenz Tate. This here's Lorenz Tate. We all seen the movie. And in the movie, Lorenz Tate goes, well, he's a high school kid. I didn't know he was 20 years old when he played this character. But either way, he was a high school student in the movie. After high school, drafted right on into the military, okay? Into the Army, I think it was. Or was it the Marine Corps? Right into the Marine Corps. So he gets drafted into the Marine Corps. Y'all remember his friend, the one that's played by Chris Tucker, the one that got addicted to that ron? That was also a actual character as well. And it was said that Chris Tucker actually improvised a lot of that whole scene or his scenes, period. So I thought that was dope to find out. But either way, the movie is based off Haywood T. Kirkland. Lorenz Tate plays him, or at least somewhat plays him in the movie. And the movie is basically off of a true story. There was actually a bank heist. There was actually, all of this is real. Now, I don't know about you, but I was around when the movie first popped off, and I had zero clue that this was actually a tale of Black American history. I had no clue. Also, I didn't know, hold on, let me switch it. Also, what I didn't know, did you guys know that the black face, or the white face for that matter, that's in this movie was purposely chosen by Haywood T. Kirkland, and it was chosen to basically like a aha F you to America. And basically the reason that it's white face with black around the eyes is to basically show America, you guys are the real enemy. You guys are the real robbers. You guys are the real bad guys. So the whole white face with black, all of this is done specifically and is done purposely for the effect of what the message was. Because you got to keep in mind, this is the 60s and the 70s. A lot of things was done for and through a message. A lot of people didn't just do things just to do them like they do in 2025. A lot of times back then, it was a lot of political messages that people were using and things of that nature. So me finding out about all this was crazy. But yes, that's the whole white face situation going on. I thought that was dope. Also, anything else I want to go about or talk about before I get into the movie? Until Haywood. Oh, let me say this before we get into this. And shout out to everybody in the building. Y'all, please like the video. It's enough of y'all in here for us to at least have 150 likes. Let's get 150 likes up on the video. And thank you guys to everybody who's here. You didn't have to be here, but you are, okay? Let me say this. It was a lot of back and forth putting this movie out. And I think it was because the powers that be did not want to give Black Americans any type of bright ideas. Because you got to keep in mind, with New Jack City, that's another movie that was kind of based on true stories, because all that stuff was really happening with drugs in the 80s and the 90s. However, in the movie, do y'all recall in New Jack City where he said, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, Miss Hawkins. And he said, ain't no poppy fields in Harlem. Remember when he said that? That was the most powerful piece of the movie New Jack City. But Black Americans, we typically more like attracted to the gangster, to the life, to the money, to the girls, to the jewelry, to the clothes. But the whole point of the movie was, yes, I sell crack. Yes, I am a detriment to my neighborhood. And also, yes, I am probably not doing the right thing, but this all is sponsored by you. That's the same thing with this movie. And honestly, I saw it as a younger kid. The whole message obviously went over my head, and now that I know what I know, I will be rewatching the movie because I seen some other stuff when I started getting into Haywood. But ultimately, I think that we got to start paying attention to messages. Everything can't be as blunt as Sinners. And Sinners is one of the first movies in a long time that has been able to be that blunt. Because I don't know if y'all know this. If you look at movies 60s and before, you'll get a lot of truth. A lot. Documentaries and movies from the 60s, maybe 70s, you might be pushing it. But 60s and beyond, meaning 60s, 50s, 40s, you want the truth? Go watch documentaries and movies from that time. All this other stuff is a bunch of play, but we're getting back. Remember, I told y'all the earth is healing itself. We're getting back to a point where the truth is now getting ready to come out, and the truths that went over our head are now coming back out so that it can slap us in the face and wake us up. So shout out to everybody in the building, y'all. Let's get right on into the live. So, let me show you now. This is the only photo I could find of Haywood T. Kirkland. Let me pull him up. And can I make this bigger? Like, I wish I could make this bigger. Let me see. All right. This is the only photo I could find. I'm so sorry if it's small. I may be able to go look on Google. Ugh. This is the only real photo I could find, to be completely honest. Let me download it and then upload it. And then, I'm sorry. Did it open? It don't matter, but I'll grab it, y'all. Oh, here we go. Hold on. Let me see. Let me make it bigger because I want y'all to be able to see what it is I am looking at. Where's the thing to make? Oh, it's already at 100. Let's zoom in some more, honey. Let me see. Ooh, girl, zoom in some more. It's so small. All right. This will do. All right, so let me show y'all the picture that I have just so y'all can see. Now, I don't know which one of these people is Haywood or whatever the case may be. And the reason I'm saying that is because I think that this person must have went under some sort of like watch or something, because it's hard to find just a photo of Haywood T. Kirkwood. So I'm going to assume that one of these two guys is him. And I didn't look too hard, but I did look enough to try to find photos. Everything I look up, when I look up this man, comes up dead presidents. This is probably the only photo I can find, like I told y'all. But I want to assume that one of these two brothers is Haywood, and something in me make me feel like this is Haywood. I don't know. Maybe the character, I don't know, but I feel like this is Haywood, but I could be wrong. So here's an actual photo of Haywood during Vietnam with his brethren fighting side by side. Now, I want to get to a little bit about Haywood so we can understand kind of why we're here, okay? So before we get into what actually happened, hold on, let me see. Let's do... No, go back. I'm going to open this up too. But I want to go back one more because I feel like I don't want to miss nothing and not share everything with you guys, because I pulled up some very interesting articles. All right. Like I said, information on this guy was hard to find, but I did find some, and we are going to get right on into it. Let's get into it. So I found this article, and it kind of, I'm going to be honest, most of the stuff that I found about Haywood T. Kirkland, it literally strictly surrounds the book. It's hard to find other information. And whenever I do that, or whenever I'm looking for stuff and it's hard to find information, it makes me squint my eyes. Now, first of all, because why is it hard to find information? And then number two, it makes me wonder why. Why is it so hard to find information on these people? But neither here nor there. Wait, this is the book, Bloods, an Oral History. And I'll pull it up a little bit more. But it says, at the age of 12, Haywood has a vision of himself in the Vietnam War and then in prison for 5 years. It is 1960. He has never heard of Vietnam before. He is drafted on November 22nd, 1966. At boot camp, the killer instinct is driven into him. He is in replacement in a division known as the Cacti Green, who go anywhere there is trouble. Haywood volunteers for a small recon group where he can say where he can have say in their actions instead of being just another blown up on the line. The most fearful times are when something is about to happen. In the heat of battle, you don't think about what's going on, but just act. When there's time to think, when there's time to think, then fear creeps in. Haywood spends a night sleeping. So this is what the book is about. But let's get into the actual I wanted to show y'all a picture of the book in case anybody. Oh no, it said, I hope Amazon didn't get rid of it. It says sorry. Girl, what you sorry for, honey? Let me see if I could pull up a picture of the book. Okay, here we go. Oh, it's only $9.99. If they had this on audio, I'd definitely pop on this. Let me see if I could open the book itself. Well, hopefully y'all can see it where I have it at right here. But this is the book. It's called Bloods. Y'all make sure it's an oral history of the Vietnam War by Black veterans. Oh, that's another thing. It wasn't just him. It was a bunch of veterans. Now, and also they had a lot of people who had backlash, like, oh, y'all making it seem like everybody who came from Vietnam went to a life of crime. I don't think that was what the intention was. I think the intention of this book and these stories was to shine light on what's really going on in the streets, okay? That's what I think, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Now let's get into it. All right, Vietnam veterans and prison. It says the car broke down and all the bills began to pile up. It don't matter. Fast forward. It says, hold on. Y'all get the likes up on the video. Sorry. Yeah, let me go back up. All right. Still I had to share the Vietnam veterans on the Okay, this is the author talking about what happened when he got the information, but hold on. Military life is the scene of wide variety deviant behavior, ranging from excessive uses of alcohol and narcotics addiction to sex. Let's read this. So, because I want y'all to understand what the military was and what it is now. What it was back then was a lot of things went. As a matter of fact, a lot of the Vietnam veterans came home addicted to heroin because they came from Vietnam, where the poppy seeds and the fields and all that, poppy seeds, but the poppy fields and all that stuff was, so that they can get this stuff. And America knew that. America didn't have no problem with soldiers doing heroin. All they cared about is they needed crash test dummies, okay? So it says, in his khaki collar crimes, deviant behavior in the military context, Clifton Bryant notes that military life is the scene of wide variety of deviant behavior, ranging from excessive uses of alcohol and narcotic addiction to sex crimes, theft, and even mass murder. Much of this behavior may perhaps be attributed to the opportunity structure of the military system and the socioculture and geographical setting in which the military normally operates. The informal pressures and strains inherent in the military culture, as well as structured subversion and organizational goals, frequently component to the military enterprise. John Helmer, Bring the War Home, The American Soldier in Vietnam and After, outlined the socially important role that alcohol and drug use played in day-to-day military life in Vietnam. Bill Shunner's in him published manuscript, The Poker Face describes well the ways in which the economic crimes associated with the U.S. and Vietnamese corruption and were ubiquitous features of daily life in the urbanized areas of Vietnam during the war. Oh, and by the way, because I grew up with a lot of Vietnamese, after the war is when a lot of Vietnamese people came over to America. Just FYI. Most of those are the people who do your nails, okay? So where was I? Okay, as Brian notes, American troops often violate currency and exchange laws of the country involved, in as much as this is one of the few economic crimes of human history of warfare forces Bryant to propose that the entire Vietnam War and the endemic crimes against the Vietnamese civilians who were theoretically the allies of the U.S. military were all unusual occurrences of war. Emphasis added, and then it says, for even the proudly conservative Bryant, the wartime experiences of Vietnam veteran remain historically unique. So what's happening here is they're talking about, first of all, the drug and alcohol abuse and use that was happening during the Vietnam War. Also, it speaks about how their experience was very unique. Now, in the movie, I don't know if y'all remember this, but in the movie, if y'all remember when Lorenz Tate went up against the judge, and remember the white judge was like, I served in World War II, a real war. Y'all remember that? Technically, while it could have or very well have been quote unquote a real war, I ain't never been to war, so I don't know what a real one or a fake one is. However, it wasn't the best thing to think, because the things that the people in the Vietnam era went through, nobody else went through. Not before, not after. Okay, so you got to keep in mind, you're dealing with being in wartime, and you dealing with Vietnamese Asians, especially if you black, girl, you don't know who is who. All I know is they all got slanted eyes. You feel what I'm saying? And then on top of that, you got to add in the element of drugs. Most of the men came back addicted to drugs. They were out there getting women pregnant. They were out there bringing back diseases, having whole families. They on drugs, and they were brought back to America and just thrown out in the streets. The government really was on some like, thank you for your services, on some real type stuff. And this is what the Vietnam veterans went through. So when we watch the movie Dead Presidents and we start looking at all of the stuff that was going on with the friend, Chris Tucker's character being on drugs, then he got the baby mama who really just trying to make it, but she really want to wait on Lorenz, but he ain't got no money. Now he ain't got no money because he a veteran, and don't nobody want to hire no veterans. On top of that, he ain't all the way right up in here. His friends is all jacked up. And that right there, in my opinion, I think that did something to America as a whole. I think the Vietnam era and the Vietnam War era did something to America as a whole. And I don't think, unless we start sitting down and actually talking about it and thinking about it, I don't think we'll really truly understand. Now, I want to scroll down a little bit more, because we kind of got an idea of what was happening and what was going on in those times. Okay. Hold on. Let me go grab. So now I want to go get really quickly. I got another article for y'all. All right. So let's go get Haywood T. Kirkland really quickly. So I saw this Facebook, because this is one of the only other things that I could find. It's ridiculous. You can't hardly find nothing on the net. Okay. Oh, I left the cup right there for you. You know what to do. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. So, anyways. Huh? They got something in it. I ain't even touched nothing out of there. I ain't touched nothing out of there. You do? Shut up. But anyway, you interrupted Educational Friday. So, okay. Haywood T. The Kid Kirkland from Bloods, an oral history of the Vietnam War by Black veterans, 1984. In an article in the New York Times magazine on March 24, 1968, reporter Saul Stern observed in Vietnam between 1961 and 1964, Negroes accounted for more than 20% of Army fatalities. So that means 20% of the people that passed were Black, even though they represented only 12.6% of Army personnel in Vietnam and less in the general U.S. population. I want to pause you right there and tell y'all, I don't believe any of this. And let me tell you why. Every single war America has fought, you have seen a plethora of Black troops. I know it. It's a lot of clear people who loved America and served their country. And boom, boom, boom. I get that. I'm with that. But at the end of the day, if y'all start thinking about it, think about your family and your friends. It's a lot of Black people in the military. Always has been. This didn't just start. Black people have been fighting side by side with the clear since the beginning of time. Okay? I never believed that Black people were that small of a minute people in the military, and let me tell you why. Because when you start looking at who all served in America, first of all, the whites is going to be number one probably. And then number two, who has a bigger demographic represented in America than Black America? And I don't want to hear, oh, no, that's not true, because statistics says that we only 13 or 14% of the population. And that mental enslavement keeps us in the chains that we in now. We ain't never been 14% of the population, and we ain't never been 12% of no military. Because whenever I look at old videos, pictures, and all that stuff, I don't see nothing but clears and niggas. Niggas and clears. So 12%, okay, girl, if that's what you want to say, but I'm telling you now, they lying. Allegedly. It says, simply put, the statistics show that the Negro in the Army was more likely than his white buddy to be sent to Vietnam in the first place. Once there, he was more likely to wind up in a frontline combat unit, and within the combat unit was more likely than the white to be killed or wounded. I believe, I'm trying to say this right, I believe that the powers that be did the draft to gather as many Negroes as possible to unalive them. I believe the draft was specifically to target Negroes. And the reason I'm saying that is because, first of all, a lot of the clears, they run to the military. Secondly, Black people didn't really pay attention to what these folks had going on with that war, nor did we care. Thirdly, it works for the powers that be. Think about it. I get to get rid of a large number of them, and also some other clears that we don't really care about because they're poor. You know what I'm saying? Get rid of the poor clears too. You know, I can get rid of these folks, and the proxy war that I'm fighting with these people, I can also, get leverage and gain leverage on that. I believe the draft was specifically designed for the Black man. That's all I'm saying. All right. Back to where was I? All right. It says Black Vietnam vets who were not killed in Vietnam returned from the war to encounter persistent racism and widespread unemployment. Many began openly critical of the war and joined organizations fighting against war and for civil rights. Y'all know what's the name of the clears I told y'all that was over there? My auntie said she think they infiltrated the Black Panther. They were also anti-war. A lot of them was.
He cleaned the damn vent out.
That's what he was on?
Yeah. I'll show you a picture of that shit.
All right. I don't need to do it right now.
No.
Okay, I'll wait. Stop interrupting. Anyways, it says, where was I? I'm sorry. Black Vietnam veterans as saying, I would never fight. No, let me go up. I went down too far. Sorry, y'all. I apologize. It says many have become openly critical of the war and joined organizations fighting against war and for civil rights. Stern quotes one returned Black veteran from the war or from Vietnam as saying, I would never fight on a foreign shore for America again. The only place I will fight is right here. Here, Haywood Kirkland describes the Vietnam War and its aftermath from the standpoint of a Black GI. Introduction from Zen and Arnold's Voice of People's History of the United States. I got drafted on November 22nd, 1966. This is from Haywood. I had been working for a book distributor and as a stock boy in some stores coming out of high school. A lot of dudes were trying to do things to get deferments. One of my brothers put some kind of liquid in his eye and said he had an eye problem at the physical. He never went. I didn't try anything. I knew when I got drafted, I was going to Vietnam, no matter what I did. I knew because of the vision I had when I was 12. As soon as I hit boot camp in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, they tried to change your total personality, transform you out of the civilian mentality to a military mind. It goes on to say, and this is from Haywood. Oh, girl, what did I do? Sorry, I'm going to go back and get it. My bad. Struggle streaming just a bit. I'm sorry, I had to go back and get it. All right, I'm going to share this tab. All right, now where was I? So it goes on to say, as soon as I hit boot camp in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, they tried to change your total personality, transform you out of civilian mentality to a military mind. Right away, they told us not to call them Vietnamese, call everybody gooks and dinks. let me say this. I grew up and we used to call the Vietnamese people gooks. Now, I did not know that that was a slur. Even in school, I did not know that the gook term was a slur. I was like a grown woman in the last couple years and I found out that was a slur. I had no idea, but we went to school with these people and we used the word freely and nobody said anything. So my bad on me, but I didn't know, okay? But it said that they were not to call them Vietnamese, but call them gooks and dinks. Right away then they told us, when you go over Vietnam, you're going to be face-to-face with Charlie, the Viet Cong. They were like animals or something other than human. They ain't have no regard for life. They blow up little babies just to kill one GI. They wouldn't allow you to talk about them as if they were people. They told us they were not to be treated with any type of mercy or apprehension. That's what they engraved into you. The killer instinct, just go away and do destruction. How insane is that? So you got, according to this man, he said the military telling them, listen, when you go over there, you're going to be faced with Charlie, the Viet Cong. They like animals and they're not human and they don't have no regard for life and they'll blow up a bunch of babies just to pop one of you. And this is the mental play that the military does. This is what gets these people to go out here, risk their lives and take others in the name of freedom. In the name of freedom. Right, Robin? Robin said, sound like the same thing they said about us, child. Ain't that what all the foreigners say when they come here? Then he goes on to say, that just go away and do destruction. Even the chaplains would turn the thing around in the 10 Commandments. They'd say, thou shalt not murder instead of thou shalt not kill. Basically, you had a right to kill, to take and seize territory, or to protect the lives of each other. Listen, now you have entered into the brains and into the clear church. Now you have entered into the minds of the clears. Now we are inside of the clear church. Did you listen to what they said? The chaplain, that's the military preacher. He's the pastor, the preacher, the parishioner, whatever the hell. This fool, the chaplain said, yeah, see, thou shalt not murder, but you can kill if it means you're doing it for land or this or for that. Don't it sound like that's what they were telling each other when they came over to America and was unaliving us and R-wording us? And now you get to see the mentality of the people who act like they ain't like that no more. And not everybody, but I'm talking about the ones that were. This is what they're telling these troops to get them. And mind you, they want them all doped up on the heroin because once their head gone, they're going to do whatever. Listen, I'm from New Orleans. I remember a period of time, especially them boys from uptown, all them niggas used to get zooted and go do something crazy. So the drugs, the war, and them with the mouthpiece, hey, they not human. All of that added together will get you where you are right now, which is, yeah, when you see one, you can just take one out without thinking about it. And on top of that, you got to think about what these men went through mentally after they unalived these people. And guess what? The only thing that could keep them sane and numb them up? The wrong. You see what I'm saying? Then they come back to America where they can't get it as much or it's not as potent and it's a whole disaster. All right. This is crazy. Let's move on. It says, like it says, basically you had a right to kill, to take and seize territory, or to protect the lives of each other. Our conscience was not to bother us once we engaged in that kind of killing. As long as we didn't murder, it was like the chaplain would give you his blessing. But you knew all of that was murder anyway. So you got the chaplain standing behind you like, yeah, you good, you good. It's killing, it's not murder. That's different. You good, you good. No. It's killing, not murder. That's different. You good, go ahead. I'm going to watch you. And he was giving them the thumbs up. That is insanitary. At the time, I basically had a gung-ho attitude about being a soldier, but could I get in the best situation and not get hurt was a legitimate concern of mine. So I checked out the line that the line companies Ones making it all the way heavy. Ones making all the heavy contact are the ones who are getting overran. I thought maybe I should avoid that and volunteer for one of these long-range recon patrols. It was a smaller group, and I had an opportunity to share my ideas and help make some decisions. With the line company, you really just a pin on the map for sure. The recon unit was basically to search out the enemy and call in airstrikes or a larger military force to engage the enemy. Most of our activities was at night. We was hid by day, or we would hide by day and out by night. So, okay, it says the recon unit that he was against, or he was with, is basically they go out and tell people what's going on. Hey, go here, go there, don't go there, go. You see what I'm saying? But either way, they was running across a lot of unaliving. I might as well say the word. I've been saying murder and kill, girl. Death. Okay. Then he says, welcome to, listen, and don't get it twisted. Do not think of this, and anybody in the chat who has served can probably identify in some way, shape, or form with some of this. Not specifically with killing, but just period. If you've ever served, or you know anybody who served, they will tell you that it's still like that in 2025. With the way they brainwash you to get you to do what they want you to do. I tell people all the time, I wouldn't recommend nobody go in the military, but do what you want. Let's move on. So it says, the politics of war just had not set in when I got there. They told us not to fire unless fired upon. But once we enter into a village, we literally did anything that we wanted to do. There was no rules at all. I began to see a lot of the politics. You would see the racialism in the base camp area, like rednecks flying rebel flags from their Jeeps. I would feel insulted, intimidated. It says the brothers, they was calling quote unquote troublemakers. They was sent to the fields. A lot of brothers who had supply clerk or cook MOS, military occupational specialties, when they came over, ended up in the field. And when the brothers who were shot came out of the field, most of them got the jobs burning poop in these 50-gallon drums. Most of the white dudes got jobs as supply clerks or in the mess hall, in sanitary. Do you guys know, I don't know, this may be a fun fact, but do you guys know, even in today's time, enlisted wise in the military, the highest rank or the highest pay grade you can be is an E9. Enlisted in the military, that's what the E means, enlisted. Do you know that most of the E9s across all branches of the military, rather it's Army, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard, most of your E9s are white men? Did y'all know that? So now that I'm thinking about how they will have the ones who even got shot be out there burning shit, it makes sense why the same people would occupy the highest rank in the enlisted grade, because where else are they going to be able to have that power? Yeah, most of your E9s are white men, not even white women, white men. Oh, and by the way, if you're a white woman, good luck in the military, because yeah, you get a little bit of something, but at the end of the day, your coochie outweighs your color. I'm just saying, moving on. Let's move on. So anyway, so we begin to talk to each other, close our ranks, and be more organized amongst ourselves to deal with some of this stuff. The ones like me from the field would tell the brothers in base camp, look, man, you know how to use grenades. If you run into any problems, throw a grenade on their porch. When I came home, I really got upset about the way my peers would relate to me. They called me a crazy nigga for going to the war. See? Didn't I tell y'all? Black people wasn't really on that war neither. But black people didn't give a damn what the clear man was fighting overseas for. So that's why they had to pull out a draft, because niggas was like, yeah, I'm good, love, enjoy. Crazy work. It goes on to say, where was I? The ones like me from the field would tell the brothers in base camp, look, man, you got to know how to use grenades. If you run into any problems, throw a grenade on their porch. When I came home, I really got upset about the way my peers would relate to me. They called me a crazy nigga for going to the war, and I was still dealing with Vietnam in my head. Well, they sent me to Fort Carson in Colorado to do the 6 months I had left. I really didn't want to give no more of myself to the Army, so I played crazy. Good job. I told people I ain't know what rank I was. I told them I was busted in Vietnam. I didn't wear no emblems. I was a buck private. I didn't know where the papers at. They made me cut my bush. What I did not get another size hat. So the hat was falling all over my eyes. Ain't that like today? Don't they try to make them cut their locks? Then I convinced the doctor that my feet was bad. I had a jungle rot. I couldn't run, couldn't stand for a long time. I couldn't wear boots. All I could do was wear these Ho Chi Minh sandals I had. And I would fall out of formation in my sandals, my big hat, and my shades. I rolled them right to the point they was about to get ready to kick me out of the military. Then on my 21st birthday, they said they was going to the Democratic Convention. Our unit was going to Chicago to be the riot squadron. I'm sorry. I told them, I'm not going there holding no weapon in front of my brothers and sisters. The captain said, Kirkland, you going to Chicago if I have to carry you myself. But I went to the doctor and told him I had a relapse of malaria. He said he couldn't really tell me anything. I would have to stay in the hospital for the weekend. He thought he was getting me. I said, that's fine. I was successfully playing crazy. I got an honorable discharge. Because I was a veteran with medals and an honorable discharge, Washington City had a job offer for me. The police force or the post office. The police force had too much military connected to it. Facts. My whole thing was to get the military out of my system. I chose the post office. Basically, I was setting on a stool sorting mail. Stuffing mail, sorting mail, do it faster. The supervisors were like the first sergeants. 6 months later, I resigned. I just got tired of it. I was also enrolled in a computer operation school. They fulfilled out none of their promises. It was a $2,200 ripoff of the VA money I got for school. They folded at my graduation class. Wow. While I was getting more revolutionary militant attitude, it had begun when I started talking with my friends before leaving Nam about being a part, it said Pan, I think they meant a part of the struggle of Black people, about contributing to the world since Vietnam was doing nothing for Black people. They killed Dr. Martin Luther King. Just before I came home, I felt used. This is huge. And this is the words from Haywood T. Kirkland and how he felt and some of the things that he went through. Right, Elroy. Elroy said, could you imagine being 19 going to Vietnam? Girl, I have a 22-year-old and she ain't gonna make it. Girl, she barely could make it down the street. 19, Vietnam. And he had to go and make up medical injuries and all this other stuff to get out of going back to doing more killing. That is crazy. And I think the craziest part for me is how the military plays the mind control and mind tricks on people. Because on one hand, this is why people go up to military people and be like, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Because first of all, you're taught that people who serve, and they are serving our country and they should be thanked. I agree. They definitely should be thanked and they should be recognized for serving the country. You won't get no pushback from me there. I think my problem is civilian people, we don't understand what these people, when you go through boot camp, they got to tear you down mentally and build you back up mentally, right? People think it's the physicalness of it all. It's the mental. These people literally retrain you how to think. This is why after people do 20 years in the military, they have to go through a program that teaches them how to be a civilian. Did you guys know that? After 20 years in the military, they have to go through courses to teach them how to be a civilian. There's only one other place that institutionalizes the mind like that, and that is prison. So that tells you and it tells me that the exact same indoctrination, the exact same mind control, the exact same BS happening to the prisoners are happening to the military people. Also, a fun fact, which is not a fun fact because it's not fun to say, but let's really be clear about it. Most of the people who do 20 years or more in the military, when they get out and retire, they die. It's harsh, right? But it's true. They have no purpose outside of the military telling them what to do, where to go, how to go. You see what I'm saying? They find no self-worth, no purpose, because they have none. Once the powers that be, the government, uses you, sucks you up, take all your youth, take all of your time away from your family and your friends, they spit your ass back out to the masses and be like, you good, go ahead. And you be like, girl, I ain't been around people in like 25, 30 years. Like, what am I supposed to do? Oh, no, it's fine. Go get a job. Then you go get a job, and the people looking at you like, girl, I don't give up if you was an E9. Bitch, this is McDonald's. Hello? May I take your order? You feel what I'm saying? Yes, or a lot of them, that's the other alternative, Joe. A lot of them end up homeless. Now, a lot of people who are homeless actually want to be homeless. That's an unpopular opinion, but it's true. A lot of people who are homeless want to be homeless, but a lot of veterans, you got to keep in mind too, a lot of them go under a whole bunch of narcotic or drug or alcohol abuse, or you know what I'm saying? I'm saying things of that nature. And a life on the street allow them to live that life more freely than them living with mama, cousin, sister, wife. You see what I'm saying? So, but no, yeah, that is another. And also a lot of veterans aren't paid enough to live on their own. You see what I'm saying? Yes, T. Haynes, don't get me started on the number of broken families, because the divorce rate is astronomically high inside of the military. Well, think about it. You join, you fall away from your family for how long? Girl, who about to keep waiting on you? So with that being said, it's a lot happening in the military, and with Haywood, and I'm gonna order that book. I'm curious now. Blood is only $9.99. I am going to order that book because now I'm curious if that's what he put in the New York Times article. I'm very curious to know what were the details of what else he wrote, or they wrote, because it was more than just him. What else they wrote in the book. I am very, very curious and would love to learn about that. Okay. Let's get over here. 20 years later, Dead President depiction about life for war veterans still resonate. Now, this is an older article, but it's from 2015. 20 years ago today, October 6, 1995, Dead Presidents was released in the theaters, and with it arrived one of the most powerful depictions of Black veterans in the history of American cinema. Starring Terrence Howard, Lorenz Tate, Chris Tucker, and Bokeem Woodbine. I love him. Among others, the film was directed by brothers Albert and Alan Hughes, who had previously directed Menace to Society, and a While Dead President was not as commercially successful as the 1993 drama, it nevertheless contributed some searing imagery to the canon of African American or Black American film. The Vietnam War plays the lead role, providing backdrop for the film's character that inevitably affects their lives. It says sometimes gravely. Plagues often met by veterans upon returning home, addiction, crime, psychological debilitation are the punctuation elements of the film's plot, dictating what obstacles the characters face and in the movie's case, do not overcome. Dead President tragically depicts the sick irony faced by too many members of the armed forces, that of risking one's life for a country only to be abandoned by it upon return to American soil, an issue that continues to reverberate in this country 40 years since the Vietnam War ended. Much of the film's inspiration was drawn by the books Bloods, an oral history of the Vietnam War by Black veterans, a 1984 book by Wallace Terry, who at only 29 only landed a Time magazine cover story in 1967 called The Negro in Vietnam. The Indianapolis native had already amassed impressive career touchstones, including becoming the first African-American editor-in-chief at an Ivy League newspaper at Brown University. He went on to continue his studies as a Rockefeller Fellow at the University of Chicago, and then at Harvard University, where he became a Nieman Fellow. And at 19, the Washington Post hired him as 7 years later. He was in Vietnam, serving as the first Black war correspondent on permanent duty. His experiences there, including time spent alongside assault troops, inspired him to write the oral history that would one day serve as the foundation for Dead Presidents. The book became a national bestseller and earned a Pulitzer Prize nomination. It was the testimony of a man named Haywood T. Kirkland, a Vietnam War veteran who shared his experience during and after the war in Terry's book that would stand out to the filmmakers. It was Kirkland who, unbeknownst to him, set in motion the vision for one of Dead President's most memorable scenes by divulging the story behind one fateful day when he and some comrades decided to rob a postal truck in 1969 Washington, D.C. According to a 1995 Post story, Kirkland, who will go on to change his name to Ari Sesu Maratazon, I'm so sorry, I know I messed that up, and 2 other men were named and discovered a bag containing more than $300,000 in worn out, nearly tattered currency. So this is what they saying. Haywood and 2 of his friends was found with a bag, an old duffel bag, full of $300,000 in old money. Ooh, girl. That's a lot of money, especially back then. Okay. Girl. Then it goes on to say, according to Ari, he instructed the driver to tell the police that the robbers were white. Then he reconsidered and told the driver to say, "Some brothers robbed me and they all look alike." Ari spoke with the Post, and they talking about Haywood. Haywood spoke with the Post after a screening of Dead Presidents, where he shared with reporter Kim Masters that while much of the film's trajectory rang true to his own life, Lorenz Tate's character is loosely based on Haywood. What was omitted was how his decision to rob the truck was born of political rage. I told y'all back then, they weren't just doing stuff just to say they did it. A lot of things had messages. So now we're finding out Haywood actually robbed the bank for a political message. Okay, let's get into it. Then it goes on to say, it didn't show how he became an inmate leader while serving time at the Lorton Correctional Facility, how he testified before Congress about the problems confronting incarcerated veterans, how President Carter invited him to the White House. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, Carter. Then he goes on to say, sorry, I had to find my cursor. Nevertheless, for the countless moviegoers who watched the tragic tale of many men and women affected by a horrific war only a generation earlier, a stark reality was echoed. Just as Chris Tucker's character suffered from a heroin addiction that would eventually end his life, the mid-90s were, for a lot of Americans, an era during which crack cocaine strangleholds during the 1980s was still very much real, and an epidemic that is disproportionately affected communities of color. Contemporary conflicts in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kuwait, Iraq, Somalia, and Haiti were collectively killing thousands of American service members, and many of them men and women of color. And the fallout from 1992's Rodney King's riot had once again magnified the destruction of equality and civil rights that would contribute to the 1995 Million Man March, which took place only 10 days after the film release. What? Back up. Maybe it's a coincidence. But Farrakhan showed it might be a coincidence, but that's crazy that the Million Man March happened 10 days after the movie, which already had people route. I might be reaching. Let's move on. I might be reaching. Okay, for many who saw the film at that time, watching the plight many of their own parents face ranged eerily true for their own lives. An unfortunate reality that shows the film's relevance to remain as powerfully resonant in 1995 as it does today. In recent years, the affairs of veterans have taken a prominent seat at the table of American political discourse, particularly as they relate to healthcare. Many argue that veterans have been consistently neglected since before the Vietnam War, often ending up homeless, unemployed, incarcerated, and both physically and psychologically ill. For many veterans of color, Those problems are exacerbated by poverty and socioeconomic factors that once again disproportionately affect minorities. But there is one category in which African American veterans fare better. According to a report published by the Los Angeles Times in September, a new analysis of nearly 3.1 million patients in the VA system has found a different kind of racial divide. Researchers found that the adjusted mortality rate of African Americans was 24% lower than that of whites, which certainly not indicative of racial equality on a large scale. Those statistics offer up a piece of rare good news on a community too often found on the unjust side of history. Then it goes on to say 2 days after its release, Dead Presidents continues its legacy of being brave, pioneering, look at the lives of American disenfranchised. It says the film's most direct legacy, however, is serving as a metaphor for the state of human relations and commonalities between how both people and money are treated. As Keith David's character Kirby succinctly puts it in his film, that's Uncle Sam for you, son. Money to burn. And I remember that part. All right. So what we know now is, or what we should have already known, is the military ain't worth a dime. I don't know why we're just figuring that part out. But ultimately, a lot of us have joined this military that we have, and we have joined this military thinking that, first of all, we have family, friends, relatives, ancestors who fought, and we want to keep the legacy going. A lot of us join because a lot of us need money. A lot of us ain't got no cars, no clothes. We need insurance. We need free school. We join for a whole different reason than the clears. That's a fact. However, this is just me, my opinion. I ain't nobody. This is just me. I think that the worst mistake we did was joining them folks on their fighting tours. Okay? Now, I want to get to this video I want to show y'all. So there was this video, because this what got me on this. I saw a video on YouTube on this channel, and this guy was talking about the movie, obviously. And he also talked about a part of the story that was cut from the movie and some other stuff. Now, that's where I got the idea, and that's where we're going with this. Now, the person who's using, sorry, it's a ad. The person whose channel I'm using is Primetime Throw. Is that how you say the name? But he did a really good video, or they did a really good video on the movie that I wanted to share with y'all. So y'all get the likes up on the video. Y'all get up in here, and let's take a look at what this person put on the internet. Let's take a look.
I too was a Marine, and I served my country proudly in World War II. A real war. These cutting words from a judge echo through the climax of 1995's Dead Presidents, delivering one of cinema's most brutal gut punches about how America treated its Black Vietnam veterans. But what most viewers missed was that this devastating speech wasn't Hollywood fiction. It was adapted almost word for word from an actual 1972 court transcript. Welcome to Primetime Throwback, where today we're uncovering the shocking true story behind one of the most misunderstood crime films of the 90s. The Hughes brothers' gritty portrait of a Black Marine's descent from Vietnam, horror to post-war desperation. What if I told you this film was never supposed to be about a bank heist at all? The real Anthony Curtis. While most viewers assumed Dead Presidents was pure fiction, Lawrence Tate's character, Anthony Curtis, was heavily based on a real Vietnam veteran named Haywood T. Kirkland, who later became known as Sekou Odinga. The film's most shocking moments, from the trauma in Vietnam to the desperate bank robbery, were pulled directly from Kirkland's actual life experiences. The Hughes brothers, fresh off their breakout success with Menace II Society, originally intended to make a very different film. Their initial vision...
Let me say this too, because shout out to the Hughes brothers. They made education fire AF, because this movie, you wouldn't have been able to tell me back then that this was based off a true story. It was action-packed. But you got to think about it too. He's coming off Menace to Society. Remember, this is the 90s, where gang culture, gang violence, drugs and all that stuff is propped up right now. So him making a dead president during a time where everybody was rooting for the gangster, it still worked. It still made it. It still made sense. And I think that the Hughes brothers don't get enough credit for that. However, I do notice that it wasn't pushed out there like Menace to Society. When Menace to Society came out, girl, it was on every commercial to go see it. Y'all remember back in the day, put a one in the chat if you're old enough to remember going to the dollar movie and all of that stuff. Girl, back in the day, they used to have billboards. They used to have, like when you go past by the movies, the big old posters, Menace. I don't think Dead Presidents got the rollout that Menace to Society got. And I was there for both of them. I remember Menace to Society. I think both of them are Black culture movies. I think that Black people, we have our own culture. You feel what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, everybody was trying to see what was going on with Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood. You feel what I'm saying? All those type of movies. So when he came with not Training Day, when he came with this movie and he was still able to make waves, I think that said a lot. I think that it said a lot. And I think that this movie probably is one of the movies that took him off of his purpose and took them out of the industry, as far as I know. I don't know, because they say the powers that be was not happy about this movie.
And wasn't focused on the heist at all, but exclusively on the African-American Vietnam experience, inspired by Wallace Terry's book, Bloods, An Oral History of the Vietnam War by Black Veterans. We wanted to make our generation's apocalypse now, but focused entirely on the Black experience in Vietnam, Alan Hughes explained in a 1996 interview. When we discovered Kirkland's full story, how he came home to nothing and turned to armed robbery, we realized this was about two wars, Vietnam and the war at home. The masks behind the masks. Remember those haunting white face masks worn during the heist? They weren't just a cinematic choice for shock value. The Hughes brothers designed these masks as a direct homage to Black liberation movements of the late 60s and early 70s. This visual metaphor carried a double meaning, forcing white America to literally see itself in these desperate criminal acts, while commenting on how Black veterans had to wear masks to survive in a society that discarded them after service. What's your interpretation of the white masks? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm curious to hear what you think they symbolize. The Deer Hunter connection. Few critics caught it at the time, but Dead Presidents was intentionally structured.
Can you please just hear me out? No.
My bad. Y'all get the likes up while there's a commercial playing. Get the likes up.
The Deer Hunter, Michael Cimino's 1978 Oscar-winning film about white working-class soldiers.
Oh, that's another part I meant to tell y'all too. Let me back him up a little bit. So this clear man made a movie called The Deer Hunters, where he spoke about clear middle class clear people and how they dealt with being after Vietnam. So the Hughes brothers thought, bet we can make our own movie. But obviously the Menace to Society brothers or the Dead President brothers ain't gonna get the same treatment. They're not gonna get the same role. You know what I mean? But it's cool when we telling the story about clear people coming home from the Vietnam War. But as soon as we start talking about Black people and the stuff that they went through, now it's a problem, girl.
As soldiers. The Hughes brothers studied Cimino's film extensively, adapting its three-act structure, but reframing it through a Black urban experience. We wanted to do for Black veterans what The Deer Hunter did for white ones, Albert Hughes explained. While The Deer Hunter won 5 Oscars, Dead Presidents was overlooked, a disparity that itself speaks volumes about Hollywood's valuation of these parallel stories. I.e., the lost ending. The film you saw in theaters was not the...
So The Deer Hunter got 5 Oscars and Dead Presidents got nothing.
The film the Hughes brothers originally made. Disney, yes, Disney, through their Hollywood Pictures division, forced the brothers to cut nearly 20 minutes from their original cut, primarily from the film's final act. The extended ending showed Anthony's complete psychological deterioration in prison, including hallucinations where he repeatedly relived the Vietnam and heist experiences. Test audiences found these scenes so disturbing that Disney executives demanded they be removed. They told us it was too dark, that audiences wouldn't sit through a 2.5-hour tragedy, Alan Hughes revealed. But that was the whole point, to show how these men were abandoned by the country they served. This lost footage has never been released, not even on special edition DVDs or streaming versions. Aging through trauma.
Why y'all think that is? Why y'all? First of all, the people lying, talking about ain't nobody gonna sit through no 2.5-hour movies. Back then, before social media, you a lying, the truth ain't in you. Nigga, we all sat through Roots, and that's a 12-hour movie. Stop the cap. Hell, Titanic was way later than, well, not way later, but Titanic was later than that. Wasn't Titanic like a 3-hour movie? Don't get me to lying. Hold on. Ain't had nothing to do with the timing on that movie, girl. Them people didn't want that truth out there. Yes, Lit Tea Talks. Them people didn't want that truth out there. Let me see. How long is the Titanic movie? I'm trying to see something.
Titanic's running time is 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Titanic was released in 1997. Dead Presidents came out in 1995. Oh yeah, The Color Purple too. Dead Presidents came out in 1995. Do you really believe that the powers that be was like, oh, nobody's gonna sit through a 2.5-hour movie when we were sitting through 3-hour and 15-minute movies? Girl, yeah. How long is the movie Scarface?
The running time of Scarface is 2 hours and 45 minutes.
How long is the movie The Color Purple?
The running time of The Color Purple is 2 hours and 34 minutes.
How long is the movie The Temptations? Oh, it said 1 hour and 28 minutes. That can't be right. 2 hours and 30 minutes. That's the right one. 2 hours and 30 minutes, okay? But the point I'm making is that was just excuses to make sure that things didn't go off the way it was supposed to and get that message. Because listen, it's not a matter of if, but when we finally wake up. Them people made sure that didn't get out of there, okay? Nobody gonna watch a 2.5-hour movie. Stop the cap.
Look closely at Lawrence Tate's face when he returns from Vietnam. The subtle transformation is a masterclass in minimal makeup effects. Rather than using heavy prosthetics, the makeup team focused on subtle details, slightly hollowing his cheeks, darkening under his eyes, adding almost imperceptible stress lines. We didn't want him to look different. We wanted him to look worn, the film's makeup designer explained. Veterans don't come home with different faces. They come home with the same face carrying invisible weight. What makes this remarkable is that Tate was only 20 years old during filming, portraying both the teenage Anthony and the war-hardened veteran. If you love primetime throwback and want to keep discovering the hidden stories behind classic crime films, hit that subscribe button right now. We drop new videos uncovering the shocking true stories that Hollywood doesn't want you to know. Guerrilla filmmaking. The chaotic bank heist scene that forms the film's centerpiece wasn't just depicting urban chaos. It was filmed in actual chaos. Parts of the
This is what I want to know though, because according to Haywood T. Kirkland, they robbed the bank, and I'm about to buy that book. But he said they robbed the bank for out of political rage. I need to find out what exactly was I kind of could surmise or guess what he was doing. Basically, like, yo, this is my resistance as a black man, fighting in this war. I get that. That's kind of like the norm. But I'm going to get to what it is exactly he was robbing the bank for.
Robbery sequence were shot guerrilla style in Harlem with extremely limited permits, meaning many bystanders had no idea a movie was being filmed. When Anthony and his crew flee through the streets, many of the shocked expressions you see on bystanders' faces are genuine reactions from people who suddenly found themselves in the middle of what appeared to be armed.
I had noticed in moving to California.
My bad, y'all.
In white face masks running from police. We had about 15 minutes to get some of those shots before the real police would show up asking questions, Albert Hughes later admitted. It adds this layer of authentic panic that you can't fake. The music battle and hidden imagery. One of the film's most powerful moments when Anthony returns home and Al Green's Tired of Being Alone plays, almost didn't make the final cut. The Hughes brothers fought a prolonged battle with music rights holders who balked at the licensing cost. That song wasn't just background music, it was practically a character in the film, Alan Hughes recalled. The brothers ultimately won the battle by cutting costs elsewhere, personally giving up a portion of their fee to secure the rights. Did you catch the hidden visual echo throughout the film? The "Black Man Go Home" propaganda posters from Vietnam mysteriously reappear in the background of 3 critical scenes after Anthony returns to America. A subtle reminder that he never truly escaped the war. The controversy. When Dead Presidents was released, it faced criticism from actual Black Vietnam veterans. Several veterans groups publicly criticized the film for what they saw as perpetuating stereotypes about Black veterans turning to crime. Kirkland himself, whose life inspired the story, defended the film. It reflects a lot of brothers' reality, even if it's painful.
I think that the brothers who came out and talked in opposition to the movie, talking about because we all didn't come home and rob banks, I think that that's obvious. And they probably not here no more. But that was the obvious. The obvious was to state the not obvious. The not obvious was to the rest of the world that they jacked Black people up real bad, like real bad. And even if you weren't one of the ones who succumbed to, you feel what I'm saying, to the things that happened on account of being in that war, you should at least still be able to admit and be okay with the story of the other side of it. Like, I really wish we would stop doing that. Everybody's not going to get our story 100% right, and that's okay. I think what we got to understand is everybody got a different story. We should just support each other, in my opinion.
Painful to admit. Not everyone's story, but many of us face those impossible choices. Chris Tucker's hidden genius. Before he became a global superstar in Rush Hour, Chris Tucker delivered one of his most nuanced performances as Skip, Anthony's friend who returns from Vietnam with a devastating heroin addiction. What few people realize is how much of Skip's character was actually Tucker's own creation. Fresh off Friday, Tucker was given unusual freedom to improvise on set. Many of Skip's most memorable lines and mannerisms weren't in the original script, but were created on the spot by Tucker. His improvised line, "I was born by the expletive, I'll die by the expletive," became one of the film's most quoted moments. In the decades since its release, Dead Presidents has been reassessed as more than just a heist film. It's now recognized as one of the most powerful examinations of the Black veteran experience ever committed to film. If this dive uncovered stories you never knew, hit that subscribe button and join the Primetime Throwback family. Every week, we're bringing you the shocking true stories behind cinema's most iconic crime classics. The final shot of the film, Anthony's face behind prison bars, dissolving into the image of a dollar bill, remains one of cinema's most haunting visual metaphors. A Black man's life, sacrificed first for his country, then imprisoned by it, ultimately reduced to nothing more than the dead presidents he desperately chased.
Still looking for a new job?
I just found out my dad.
All right. So I thought that was interesting. I thought it was extremely interesting, actually, when I saw that, because, again, like I said, I done watched Dead Presidents 1,000 times, and I had no clue that this was based off of a true story, or at least loosely based off of true events from actual Black Vietnam War veterans. Now, remind you, when y'all start doing y'all genealogy, you're going to find a lot of military personnel in your family, uncles, cousins, daddies, granddaddies, grandmothers, sisters, aunts, cousins, nieces, nephews. Y'all are going to find all of that. Well, probably not nephews and nieces, depending on your age. But I'm saying all that to say you're going to run across a lot of these things. Just like when we talked about the 12th Regiment, was it a few weeks ago? And they talked about how basically the military literally hang their own troops before even discharging them. And then what the military did was secretly, quietly put out this little email. Hey, and it's not really an email. It's just kind of like a post that's shadow banned. If you or somebody you know any of these people, contact us because, girl, we owe you. But they understand that most Black Americans don't do genealogy because we're stuck. And most of us already believe we from Africa, so we definitely not going to do no genealogy. The same situation applies in this dead president situation. The way the government did the veterans, I don't care what color you is if you're on here today. The way the government did the Vietnam veterans is dirty and downright sad. It's actually really, really bad. And when we start talking reparations, let me just try to speak in code. When we start to speak about reparations, the money should be flying in from everywhere. If you kind of get where I was going and understand what I'm saying, what I'm trying to tell you is when we start talking about the conversation of reparations, when they start talking about where the money should be coming from and who owe, it should fall from the ceilings. It should literally fall down like rain on our foreheads. That's how much is owed to Black America. I need you guys to understand that, but you also need to do your genealogy, and you also need to know who you are and how your people contributed and what they contributed, because everybody contributed something. But to know exactly who you are and how your people contributed to this world, because you never know what you owe. You never know. Bronze Beauty, thank you for the super chat, says, I'm ready to learn. Let's learn. I'm ready. Go ahead on, girl. Thank you so much for the super chat. William, hey handsome, hey beautiful. Thank you so much for the super chat or the super sticker. Joseph Galloway, thank you for the super chat. Is it safe to assume that Black soldiers were assigned to the vanguard? They go in first while the rest hang back for other obligations. Oh wow, I don't know anything about the vanguard, but probably that's what it sounds like. Joe, that's what it sounds like, Joseph. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look up this vanguard thing. I didn't know what that was. And then Deserving One, thank you for the super sticker. Yeah, I gotta look up this vanguard thing because it sounds like that's exactly what he described. Like all of the Black men, no matter if you were wounded, injured, it didn't matter. You was over there burning number twos, and the clear people was over there being desk workers and all that stuff. That stuff still happened in the military, but neither here nor there. Thank y'all so much for being here. Shout out to everybody in the building. I hope you guys learned something new today. I know I did, about Haywood T. Kirkland, another Black American elder or not elder or ancestor who, I don't even know if he's unalive. Either way, another Black American who literally laid his mark on the world. And it's a lot of Haywood T. Kirklands in our families. We just got to do our genealogy, okay? But with that being said, I'm about to josh y'all up out of here. Love y'all down to the ground. I'm tired. I've been running all around town. It's crazy work. I'll catch y'all on the next one. See y'all later. Peace.
Can you hear me now? Oh, let's go! It's your boy Big Chew, the voice of the beat. You know what I won't blaze up. Come on, blaze up.
It's the beat for me.
Wow, 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 for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Drop it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Do it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Come on, baby, we live. For your boy. For your boy. Hustle for your boy. Fix it for your boy. Drop it for your wow, 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 lift it up.
Mr. Carroll, how you give the voodoo doll time to talk? I don't get no fucking time to talk.
Who the voodoo doll is?
The nigga you just had up here.